Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is our Arise News analyst, Emmanuel Ifeni, Great Malabite. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rufai.
Bless you, sir.
We start the review with this day Nigeria's newspaper of record. Niger. Ecowas deploy troops ready for diplomacy, peace. Nigerian president says initial ultimatum yielded no result. We are ready, declares Nigerian efforts. Afenifere can, others insist military action is no option. Yes, the ECOWAS leaders met yesterday to review their position after the ultimatum given, and the verdict is that the initial threat and the 7 days ultimatum has not moved the coupist one bit. And as such, all options are on the table, including the deployment of the standby force, which has been activated according to the leaders yesterday when the communique of that meeting was read. And of course, other newspapers also reporting this story. The Guardian newspaper, who blinks first? Niger forms new government as ECOWAS standby force ready for deployment. Well, this is not brinksmanship, and it should not be reduced to that level. The outcry, the groundswell of opinion that military option should take the back seat, while diplomacy, dialogue, and negotiation is pursued to its logical conclusion, I think that should still prevail. For the president of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who already wrote to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and a resolution taken that Nigerian military should not be deployed, what will happen with our efforts saying they are ready? It is not about the readiness of our military, but there's a constitutional issue here. Perhaps the president will want to summon an emergency if the Senate can reconvene to look at his proposal again. But in the light of the groundswell of opinion around the country, I'm sure if we were to do a referendum on whether we should deploy or not, what we have on ground now is that Nigerians are not in support of a military action against the Nigerians. Of course, the coupists have been adamant in their position. President Hassan Ouattara was saying yesterday that these coupists are terrorists. But when I looked at his body language as he was making that speech, this is the Hassan Ouattara, president of Côte d'Ivoire, who has been making strenuous effort to extend his tenure in office against the constitution of that country. But with this kind of...
Look who is talking.
Yes, with that kind of action, you see why sometimes these military boys try to justify themselves with the actions of politicians, but no to military rule. I think that we are all on the same page on that, but politicians must also check themselves. What they do, not to give reason for ambitious military boys to strike. But in the case of Niger, we've also heard that the president who was elected not too long ago has been doing well. So what could be the problem? Of course, there are other undertones in the Nigerian country that has propelled some of these feelings and ill feelings, as it were. Now, the Daily Trust newspaper is also reporting the story. Nigerians kick as ECOWAS orders deployment of troops. Force threat must be withdrawn. Jega, Agwai, others. It's about collaboration and unity. Tinubu will be at the receiving end. Experts warn Bazoum will be killed if we are attacked. Military rulers. While the Vanguard newspaper reporting the story in Niger, ECOWAS orders deployment of standby force. Now, the story below the photograph in the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, APC NWC to welcome Edo Deputy Governor next week. It's not true. I will swim with Obaseki, Shaibu. APC, not Rehabilitation Center for Distressed Politicians. Senator Adams Oshomole is the one making that statement. Well, the case in Edo State, it doesn't look good for the politicians there. Obaseki, Governor Godwin Obaseki, of course, had problems with his principal when he wanted to go with his godfather, as it were. Then, chairman of the APC, Adams Oshomole, when he wanted to run for the second term. He had to leave the party to get the ticket of the PDP. He ran and he won. And then, I remember one of the point of negotiations with the PDP when he was leaving the APC was that I have to move with my deputy, Philip Shaibu. And of course, the PDP considered, because they needed to have Edo State as one of the PDP states. And they won. Now, what has gone wrong, you will ask? Shaibu wants to be his successor. Obaseki has other ideas. I thought they should just go to the polls and square it out at the party level. But these things are not so straitjacket as we think, because politicians, they have their ways. Now, Obaseki and his deputy, Philip Shaibu, are at daggers drawn. We're hearing Shaibu wants to go to APC. He said, no, I will sink and swim with Obaseki. But there's somebody who is laughing at the other corner. That's Adams Oshomole, who was vilified, attacked by Philip Shaibu, one of his own acolytes, before they went their different ways, politically speaking. But we'll keep a watch on what is happening in Edo State. But there should be peace in Edo State. We don't want any crisis there that will lead to thugs attacking one another. Well, for now, it's talk. We'll see whether Philip Shaibu will sink and swim with Obaseki as he has promised, or he will take the next flight and join the APC, irrespective of what Adams Oshomole is saying. Now, the Punch newspaper, the lead story of ECOWAS troops on standby, junta threatens to kill Bazoum. Now, the Daily Sun newspaper, we look at the story below the photograph, the Daily Sun newspaper. Southeast governors meet in Enugu, vow to end insecurity in the zone. Exonerate Kanu from ugly situation. Yes, the Southeast needs a summit like this because the lingering insecurity in the Southeast is unacceptable. And of course, they must also do something about the sit-at-home, because in a number of states in the Southeast, sit-at-home on Mondays is still very well observed. Of course, because the people don't want to put their lives in danger when these hoodlums come out on Monday to attack people who dare to open their businesses in some of these states. Now, Enugu State is taking the lead there and trying to see that Mondays are work days. Now, we go to the Nation newspaper. The Nation newspaper, the lead story, ECOWAS put troops on standby for Niger rep junta. All options on the table. UN worried over fate of President Bazoum. The New Telegraph newspaper, the lead story, ECOWAS activates standby force. But there's another story below the photograph. Holiday allowance. Akpabio apologizes to senators as resignation pressure mounts. 3 Southwest senators report issue to Tinubu. Tinubu, of course, we know that story. We'll send prayers to your mailbox, Rufai. You will get your prayers.
Yes, so Archbishop
Yes.
send it to
Now, the foreign newspapers quickly, the Times of London, strike push NHS to the brink. Almost 1 million appointments cancelled. Waiting list at record high of 7.6 million. Junior doctors begin latest workout today. Yes, of course, the intermittent strike by doctors in the NHS, of course, costing the NHS a lot. And the Daily Telegraph puts a figure on that, the Daily Telegraph of UK, £1 billion cost of junior doctor strike. Consultants' high rates to cover workout is affecting frontline services, says Steve Barclay, the health secretary. 16 days of industrial action have cost the health services hundreds of millions of pounds in cover for absent staff, disruptions, and making up lost opportunities. Now, the Guardian newspaper, also of the UK, Prime Minister will go down in history for failing on climate. Greenpeace, yes, the executive of Greenpeace are calling out to Rishi Sunak that Rishi Sunak's government will go down in history for failing the UK on the climate crisis while ministers pursued a dangerous culture war. The head of Greenpeace is making that statement. Ruben, Rufai, and Ayo.
I just want to go in the line of the thing you said about Alisa Ouattara and just to call out the hypocrisy of our African leaders. This was the same Alisa Ouattara that had announced that he was not going to do a third term after 10 years in power. Then something happened. The man he had already anointed even said that he's going to be the candidate of his party, Amadou Coulibaly, then died. After Amadou Coulibaly's death, then Alisa Ouattara reneged on his own word that I'm not going to run again. Then he came back and he ran in a very botched, and I use that word, very botched, pardon my French, elections. Because we all know how he stifled oppositions. We all know how after the election he had to start reconciling with the likes of Conor Bedie that just passed recently. How the elections were as good as no elections. And he won that election, put himself in power. It is the same Alisa Ouattara that is saying all of this. Which, when we have always linked the problem of Africa to sit-tight leader, not to say Bazoum was a sit-tight leader and the economy was on the bounce, but Alisa Ouattara is just a clear indication of what is wrong with us in Africa. How leaders feel the place is their throne. Let me also call them out. Another leader that came there was president of Togo there yesterday. Good. Since Togo gained independence, it is only 2 or 3 families that have become top family. The first family is the family of Silvio Olympio and the Eyadema family. This Furo
Eyadema came in through military coup.
Yes, this Furo Eyadema.
And entrenched himself.
That his
and created
father,
a dynasty.
His father, Nasingbe Eyadema, was there for many years. After his father passed, Furo Eyadema took over. He's been there for so many years now. He's part of those sitting in the meeting and saying, let us entrench democratic values in Africa. So with just 2 full points of mind, I would like to call out the hypocrisy of African leaders for what they are. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for calling out the hypocrisy. Let me come back to Nigeria, because we have focused, and quite rightly so, on Niger, and we quite forget that the president still hasn't announced the palliatives or perhaps measures to cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. Just on the front page of the Vanguard, bottom left, we have Danfo drivers not complying with transport fare cut, Lagos government, and the full story is on page 10. So according to the story, they had gone on an inspection tour. Anyways, we are out of time, but just to say that if the government didn't provide palliatives for the Danfo drivers themselves, then they're under no obligation to give a 25% cut to pedestrian, to commuters.
2 more questions to be raised about ECOWAS' decision yesterday. Another question, in addition to questions I raised earlier, will be as follows. Is ECOWAS shadow boxing? Because I said, it looks like their position is contradictory. Are they shadow boxing? 2, where is that standby force? And then 3, the point raised by Mr. Dan Agbese in his opinion piece at the back page of The Guardian today, that look, the manner in which these coupists in Niger have treated Nigeria with so much undisguised contempt speaks to something about how Nigeria has lost its stature as a big man within the region. Once upon a time in this same West Africa, if Nigeria took a position, other countries will immediately comply. Under President Obasanjo, some characters tried a coup somewhere. Obasanjo just needed to tell them, if you don't get out of that place within the next 48 hours, I will march on your country. Of course, the coup leaders, quickly began a rapid dialogue with their legs. But Nigeria has lost that reputation, which is unfortunate. The other story I think is of interest. In the UK, the National Institute for Safety and Excellence now says AI, artificial intelligence, will be used for radiotherapy for the investigation of certain categories of cancer, including colorectal cancer, which means it's misfortunes with artificial intelligence. So it's not just that artificial intelligence will take our jobs. There is
it's solving problems.
There's some advancement for humanity. Thank you very much, Emmanuel.